Back here in the beautiful Spring Mountains, quickly becoming one of our more visited ranges. That's the Charleston Massif, broadly speaking. Here's the Potosi Massif. So I'm on the west side. That's Level Canyon. A paved road into the springs, very heavily utilized. Even on a Tuesday night, there were dozens of people camped along it. Whether for recreation or because they're homeless, I'm not sure. I'm gonna do a loop through the montane zone of the springs. Stick around 4,000 to 6,000 feet most of this trip. Quite warm first week of November. Short sleeves. And there's a burn area here. It's markedly tawnier or tanner or browner from afar. You can see fall vegetation, mostly leafless, but of a much different hue between burned and unburned areas. Get some salsula trying to establish in the burn zone, as it will try to establish along any disturbance corridor. Doesn't look like it's too extensive, but it is bad to see so much salsula here. So that explains the difference in vegetation. Some of it didn't die, native vegetation, but otherwise there's a bunch of annuals here in a land that's highly supportive, in contrast, of perennials. Some even still green, as it's been raining still into the fall here and there. A few native primary establishers, dahlias. But we're in early successional stages right here. This fire must have been last year or this year. I think it was probably last year, 2020. Wow, kind of a wasteland. Walking through this gentle yet beautiful wash. Still lots of green plant activity. Rabbit brushes are in fruit, in flower both. Berkelia in fruit and still green. Ceanothus, evergreen. Some evergreen Ungaria there. Some of the cacti are looking a little ratty. Maybe they always get quite discolored this time of year. I don't know. It's not that often that I'm in the montane in November. Camiscice persisting. Highly anthocyaninic for maximum sun protection, I imagine. Rabbit brushes, Chrysothamnus and Ericomeria, pretty much the only things in flower this time of year still. What's going on here? It's a bit unexpected. Maybe willow and fraxinus being protected here. It's a monitoring station. Water. Government likes to keep watch of the waters in a lot of Nevada. For rather obvious reasons, I think. So little of it, so you gotta protect what you have. Hard to walk through all this. Solidago is still flowering. Another autumnal aster. It's crazy that we live in a world where every single individual willow now has to be cordoned off against the deer and whatnot. This is simply ridiculous. How long do you think they're gonna last in these fences? Nice patch of agave, Mortonias. This little limestone barren area. Reminder that agaves die once they flower, once they fruit. In some of these cases, it's good to see them having fruited. Stalks can get well above human height. I don't know what controls how big they get. Must be how much energy they've stored across their life. Who knows what induces them to finally flower. These ones flowered with a lot less energy. That one flowered with a lot more energy. Anyway, we can see a common type of fruit. A lot of monocots and others here. These are loculicidal capsules. What that means is they've split along axes, opening up into the chambers themselves there, rather than along the septi or dividing lines. See those three dividing lines? Those are three fused ovaries, evolutionarily speaking, but now consider three separate carpels rather than separate ovaries. And some plants, like members of the Malvaceae, I think, and a lot of others, that will form capsules that split along those suture lines. Therefore, they can break off into individual units that can further split and spread seeds elsewhere. These ones, the loculicidal capsules, just opening into the seed or ovule chambers themselves. These seeds simply fall out upon maturity, upon splitting, and no further splitting along the septi or dividing lines that separate those three carpels. It's good to see, government officials smartening up just a little bit over time. They start to realize things like birds will get stuck in open pipes, so they learn to seal them off on construction of this bike path, or modernization, officialization of what may have been a dirt bike path, and now they try to close the bikes off with this metal structure. It's because we're very close to Las Vegas here. They don't like motorbike recreation close to cities, so it becomes more of a mountain bike type of deal over time as places modernize and expand, the old-timey recreationalists like ATV users and motorbike users, they get pushed further into the countryside. They have to, if they happen to live in Las Vegas, they then have to get a big truck and a trailer to haul out their recreational vehicles into the backcountry. Whereas near urban areas, such a widespread thing now. Those former dirt bike trails become mountain bike trails, which is totally fine. Doesn't matter to me. They're both bikes either way. I prefer foot travel, accessing places bikes and roads can't. Spring mountains can feel exceptionally dry in areas. They are a very high range in the Mojave, so lower montane slopes are very Mojave indeed. Not so much the sagebrush of the north, a common one, Artemisia tridentata. Here there's a ton of the stouter and more deserty analog, Artemisia nova, which has temporarily disappeared actually. Just in a big patch of it too. It was a monoculture back there. We will have to revisit that species. There it is. Tridentate leaf group. It doesn't get very high off the ground. It's about the highest it gets back there. More commonly quite low to the ground. Artemisia nova. Artemisias should have been flowering this year. I think that's from a year prior to this year. Maybe got hit really hard by the mega drought, as they call it, particularly of prior to July of 2021, that drought. Now we're poking our heads a little bit out of the drought here in November 21. But some of these shrubs and other perennials have suffered quite a bit and are still very much trying to recover. I've seen them flowering this year in more favorable habitats. Artemisias, that is. North of here. But here in the deep Mojave, it's been a different story. And in the Great Basin. Beautiful mountain springs. On a public road here. It's not invading on anyone's privacy. It's probably narrowly avoided burning down quite a few times. Maybe it's even burned down before. Look at it, surrounded by forest. Beautiful place though. Wouldn't mind a spot up here. Yeah, there's another springs area near Mountain Springs. I think that's what it's called. Not that great with human names, but my plant names are usually pretty good. Quite a seep here. Juncus, solidago, invasive cercium, all kinds of other Eurasian weeds as well. And some native species too. Looks like some rumex back there. Looks like some yerba mansa, perhaps. I didn't know it grew so high up. How about these roses? Another seep area, evidently, with all the juncus. Lots of other stuff. Big, bushy, beautiful roses. And goldenrods, etc., etc. Standing water and oak leaves. Lots more yerba. Pretty nice in this part of the Spring Mountains crest, just north of Potosi there, which looks way more rugged on those northern slopes. Went up those northeast slopes in, when was that? April to May. Those cliffs of the actual crest there are pretty intense. First time I've seen a really burnt out Yucca shadidra grove. Seen a number of burnt out Joshua tree groves together. Thankfully it's not that extensive. It's really hard for fires to spread so extensively when the vegetation's so sparsely spaced as in the Mojave. It did some damage. Other things are coming back. That's a ephedra right there. A lot of the shrubs are sprouting back from underground parts or from fire-reduced shoots. Sabanules like erodium, so a mixture of things come back here. Give it 5 years though, I think it'll start looking pretty good again here. Not a ton of the yuccas coming back, but not all of them were destroyed. There's a few over there. Astragalus. Here is actually one coming back from underground parts. It looks like a pup, probably, more than a seedling to me. So close to that dead individual. Pretty interesting stuff. It's rather green here in November. Much greener than the non-burned areas, in fact. Not lots of pups trying to come up, but they get eaten pretty quickly, probably because they're more tender and easier to reach than the adults. Nonetheless, we're on the edge of the burn here, and there's plenty of healthy yucca shedidra out there. Just find it interesting that they have a hard time maturing because of, who knows, I guess it's probably rodent damage. But most of them don't do it. See one little green shoot coming up under there. I imagine if they get burnt severely or enough, they don't pup at all. A dense population is something we don't really see that often. Mortonia tarantulas here. Have to look again in the spring for some flowering. Member of an enigmatic family, Celastraceae. Thing about Mortonia makes it distinctive is its rather thick evergreen leaves that are curled and upward facing. Very distinctive, and they're fairly scabrous too. I'll have to study the white flowers some other time though. Strange family in that it's desert shrubs and Arctic alpine herbs, circumboreal herbs such as species of Parnassia and other enigmatic things like Paxostima. So the family characteristics aren't that important for us here in Nevada, as opposed to just learning the individual and few lineages of Celastraceae. I think it's pretty much just Mortonia and Parnassia. There may be another genus or two. Well under 10 species in that family here though. See those upward curled evergreen leaves? Relatively low shrubs. Don't really get much more than a meter tall. And locally common in parts of southern Nevada, I'd say. Not widespread, not common throughout, but where it is found, it can be locally common. Such as right here, where it's very common locally. Beautiful sandstones, red rocks areas. It's Bonnie Springs, a couple well-to-do properties there. I'm following a very informal trail system. Some of these trails are actually horse paths, seems like. Although everything in this area is used by other creatures, particularly humans from time to time, especially by mountain bikers looking for new terrain. Anywho, bypassing all that private property, sticking to the west, right up against the springs more or less, and we'll see how close to this metal pole these paths do or do not get. So the lake is closed not because it's hazardous, but because it's protected habitat. Just as well, this is pretty damn close to Las Vegas. Just ran into a smaller tarantula. Early November here. That means I think, snakes and scorpions could still be out. Even though I consider this the off season.